Hello and welcome to Gardener's World. Guess what? I've had some rain. It feels absolutely wonderful. The garden is damp. What a year. Some plants have absolutely loved it. This gravel garden is really built for it. It's planted with those things that love those dry conditions. And interestingly, if I take us back 12 months, this is Tophill, Little May, this beautiful sort of soft yellow flower. This was just about coming into flower. This year, gone. But wonderful as plants are, there's a tiny little flower in there just trying to do its thing. But what I'm doing now is just going through and I'm deadheading. And the way that I suppose, view gardens is, for me, the colour should always be the bonus. Because, yes, it rocks up, but it goes. You look at this in front of you. So you've got Tophill, and then we've got this, which is Goldilocks aster. That is just about to come into flower. It's called Galatella. But look at the difference in the foliages. But I know you love your colour, so we've got the sea lavender over there and the orangiums and even the Muhlenbeckia, which has got this tiny little flower. Looks fantastic. Hello, young man. You all right, boy? Do you want to say hello? Yes. That says hello to Gardener's World. Come out the way, young man. Come out the way. There's plenty of time for you. Coming up on today's programme, Francis heads to a terraced garden in Bath, which is teeming with garden treasures.
This is a great Paulonia, Matt.
Oh, I love this tree so much. It really is one of the most special things in the garden.
Yeah.
And it's just the size of the leaves that gets me every time.
They're so big.
Yeah, it's super beautiful.
Sue travels to Anglesey to see a breathtaking garden that enjoys a wonderful borrowed landscape.
What a location.
This is something that we wake up to every day. It's paradise, just absolutely everything about it. It takes our breath away.
We meet an inspirational gardener in Derby who has fired up the locals to get involved in a community growing project.
That's the power of gardening, and that's the power of connecting with nature, is that it's got the power to connect us together and create community for that kind of collective purpose.
And we meet a passionate rose grower who can't imagine life without them.
You walk round and you just see nice blooms everywhere and think, oh, that's lovely, that's lovely. So it's hard to pick one.
I have decided to make a major change. Well, it feels like that anyway. Here, there was a big block of Buxus hedge that had been here for quite a while and was making a real statement. And then the box tree caterpillar, that rocked up, it went straight through it. It's even up the top there on some other hedging. So rather than trying to fight that box tree caterpillar, I've replaced it with this tank, which is going to make a lovely little water feature, but still use that big block pushing away from the wall, which sort of frames the steps and helps you up. And I think water features around the garden, I've not got anything huge. There's one outside the office, I'm down on the lower terrace, up near the greenhouse, and this feels like it's just the right place to add what I call another service station for wildlife. But the first thing I need to do, which I've started already, is build just like, I suppose, like a little staircase. And these sets I'm using are leftovers from the path that we laid. And what we're doing, just creating this so if any wildlife falls in from up here, you know, clambers in, it can get out. There's going to be pots around there, so it'll be able to get out and everything will be safe. I think what we're going to do is just build this bit by bit. Only 3 different species of plants. The first one is this miniature bulrush, all right? You could use this as a marginal, and ultimately what a marginal plant will do will grow on the edge of a pond, really, but it needs the moisture. So you'll hear them called bog plants. And that's why this is in a pot that hasn't got any holes in it, because I could just literally plant it into the soil as long as it was getting the moisture. I want to put it into this feature. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it into an aquatic basket, because what will happen as we pot it up, it will root, and that is how it's going to get its nutrients. And the mix I'm using is aquatic soil and horticultural grit. I've washed the horticultural grit to take a lot of the sort of muck out. And when you sort of go and buy aquatic soil, what you're buying is a bag of soil which will probably contain an awful lot of sand, but it'll be really low in nutrients, because that's what causes the problems in ponds. When we put too much nutrient, that is where you start to get your algae and things like that. So that's potted in really nicely. And what I want to do now is just finish off the top of that with horticultural grit that I've washed out. This is giving everything some weight just to hold it down. And that is that simple. So now, what you need to work out with your marginals is the depth of water. And this is about 40 centimetres deep. So if you imagine that the top of this pot will have 30 centimetres of water above it. So I'm just going to drop in a couple more of my blocks, because that will bring it up by about 10, 12 centimetres. And I'm going to slowly lower that in place. So the next thing I want to do is put the water lily in. I think the first thing I'd say, before you add anything like a lily to a feature, do your research. You will find they vary hugely in size and how much surface they cover. So when you're lowering that lily in, what you don't want to do is take these leaves too far under the surface, because you'll stress the plant. So do that very slowly, but that's just about right. You'll find by tomorrow morning, yeah, they'll all sit absolutely perfectly. Next, we've got our oxygenator. This one's called hornwort. So that oxygenator will do exactly what it says on the tin. It will provide the oxygen, which will help keep that water clear. That provides more habitat under the water. Then you've got the horizontals of the lily pads. They're going to provide shade. But as we know, how many times have we seen wildlife just coming down, sitting on the pad, taking a drink and flying away? And then you've got that vertical at the end there, where you've got the larvae of the damselfly, and the dragonflies climb up and boom, into the world. Now, last summer, Sue went to visit a garden that I would say has definitely been designed around a bigger water feature than this.
In my garden, I get tiny glimpses of the sea, and I've made it my mission to try and design it so nothing masks the view. But it's not as simple as it seems to get the best plants not to obscure it. So how do you make the right choices in design when the whole garden is all about the view? On the north side of Anglesey, it's hard to look in any direction, where the water doesn't meet the sky. And just a few hundred metres from the sea, Sharon Darlington has designed a garden to reflect this, where the view of an old mill pool and the landscape beyond isn't incidental, it's the star of the show. What a location! We've got trees, we've got fields, and then we've got this huge expanse of water.
When we walk in the garden every evening after work, and we're greeted by this, and it still takes our breath away, it's just mesmerising, magical.
So what did you hope to create when you started?
To enhance the already beautiful view, but not obscure it, and to lead you in to just want to sit and take it all in.
The garden was a blank canvas when Sharon started to design it, with just a bank of grass running down to the water. Sharon knew she wanted to frame the view, so she put in large shrubs on either side of the property, like hydrangeas and catinus, that linked to the trees in the wider landscape but didn't obscure them. And she found a clever way of taking advantage of the garden's sunny aspect with masses of colourful planting that would enhance the view of the mill pool. There really are a lot of containers and some very large raised beds. What made you decide to garden quite like this?
The substrate that we have here on the top part of the patio was a real issue. So it was a case of, oh, we had pots, we can build some more planters. And it's gone on from there.
75% of her plants are in pots, and they're packed with cosmos, salvias and geraniums which tumble over the sides. It keeps the chaos of the plants slightly contained, doesn't it?
Contained but untamed.
I love that. And I can see you've got a particularly great selection of plants that you can see through here. Was that deliberate?
Yeah, very much so. The verbena, bonariensis and the drumstick alliums, just adding flow to complement the water.
And I think those flowers of the water lily you've really cleverly picked up with your dahlias.
Yes, the lilies we put in there 7 years ago, they're tiny, and it's gradually becoming a Monet watercolour.
So when you look at this lovely border you've created, how does it make you feel?
A pinch me moment, really, that this is something that we wake up to every day. It's paradise, just absolutely everything about it is really breathtaking.
I love the way Sharon has designed the garden to take you on a journey. The path at the top of the terrace draws you down to what must be the first jetty I've ever encountered in a garden. It juts out into the mill pool and allows you to experience the garden and the view from a totally different perspective. I couldn't resist dipping my toes in the water. And there's a lovely breeze coming down the valley, which brings noise and movement to the bulrushes which have naturalised themselves here. Beneath my feet, there are fish swimming. Sharon has deftly designed the terraces so flowers will spill over the steps, almost to the water's edge, making the garden feel like it's part of the natural landscape. On one side, we've got the calmness of the pond, and on the other side, we've got this contrasting lushness of the flowery border. And it's a beautiful colour scheme, all lilacs and purples and pinks. And what's particularly nice is they've used hostas, which you'd normally associate as being in the shade. But here they've got them in the full sun and they're flourishing. And the colour is repeated throughout the border, and it's also picked up with the beautiful lilac hydrangea. And in contrast, shape-wise, we've got these lovely flathead achillias, which come in pinks and whites. And because it's on a slope, you can sit here and it's like having an amphitheatre of flowers in front of you. I'm really taken with the way Sharon has found little spots around the garden where you can tuck yourself away, but still catch a glimpse of the mill pool. And in one corner, Sharon has created a garden with a whole different feel that still allows the view to be the main event. I'm at the side of the house, which used to be a driveway full of hardcore, and Sharon's turned that to her advantage and made a dry garden. She's also used lots of reclaimed material. There are steps made of pallets interspersed with chamomile that waft a lovely scent as you walk over them. And there are these beautiful Welsh oak benches made from fallen trees. I love this. This is Stepa gigantea, and it really welcomes the wind and makes the most of it. Behind me is something I've not seen before. It's a bluegrass, blue lime grass, and it's rather stunning, and it looks great with the Welsh slate. I've not come across grasses displayed individually like this, and I'm really thinking about how I can use this idea in my planting schemes at home. But there's one place I really want to go to sit and admire the view, and it's just over there. The way that Sharon's used clever planting and local materials so that the view is never hidden but celebrated is really inspiring. And when I go back to my own garden, I'm going to think about how I can take a little bit of this magic back with me.
That is a beautiful garden. But remember, you don't need rolling acres to frame a view. You might remember back in April, that was the elder that I really hard pruned, but I left some of the growth to provide me with flower, which it did, and now the berries are looking superb. But look what it's doing. With this Prunus cerula here and that, the colours work well together. Makes this area feel really comfortable. I'm tucked away, safe, but at the same time, it frames this sort of beautiful view that takes you right down the garden. But enough about that, because I've got to get on with something else. Back in the spring, this umbellifer, which is sweet Sicily, incredible plant, but it seeds around a lot. And here, let's call it its happy place, which I think for the first 3 years in the garden, I was absolutely fine with. Now, it's just started to take over. And what I want to sing, which is getting buried, is this beautiful rose, which is called Rosa Doncasterii. Arching shrub rose, fantastic hips, which you can just see forming. Now, they're sort of slightly pear-shaped and they orange and just get brighter. But on top of that, I grow it because of the stem colour. And the stem colour then picks up beautifully with the Prunus cerula. And all it needs is a bit more room. It'll get up to about 4 foot and you'll have that lovely arching habit. So what I'm doing at the moment, I'm just cutting back the sweet Sicily to work out how much of it I need to dig out. I'm doing it now because if I don't come in and cut things back, I know what's going to happen is I'm going to forget about it. And just take a couple more out of there. Incredible. Aniseed. So sweet Sicily is a perennial. Ultimately, this is how it seeds about. Those little black rugby balls, so I will just trim some of those off, slow it down. But this here will not go to waste. Some of that, when you're stewing your rhubarb, drop some in, you will not need sugar. It's a really great plant in the kitchen. I think that is about there. You gotta imagine now that can put on growth that way, this way. Yeah, that would look fine, wouldn't it? Maybe a little bit more back there. There you go. And now what I'll do in the next couple of weeks is just come in, dig all these little seedlings out, and then this one will really get the chance to kick on next year. I'm not somebody that's necessarily driven by the flower of the rose. I love the form, the colour of the stem, maybe even how many thorns it's got, then the hips that follow later on in the year. But now we're off to meet a man that takes rose growing to a whole different level.
I come through the gate and I envision it like the film of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. When he goes through that door, it's a wonderful sight. I end up having a look under the foliage and you give him a stroke and you're just at one with it. My name's Neil Duncan and I'm a champion rose grower and this is my allotment here in Hampshire. I've got around about 1,000 roses now, 52 varieties of hybrid tea, and then 30-odd varieties of floribundas, miniatures and mini floras. But I've been growing roses for over 20 years, culminating in becoming the national champion for the last 11. I got into showing from a friend of mine called Bill Gould. I had a few roses around the house, and he said, come on, we'll show them. And the next minute, he's given me a piece of his allotment, and we're going off buying 35 bushes. And I dipped straight into showing with him. Completely sold on it. I loved it from the start. I'm a, real fan of the old hybrid tea. They're out of fashion a little bit, but for me, they're still the king of the rose. You walk round and you just see nice blooms everywhere and think, oh, that's lovely, that's lovely. So it's hard to pick one. Sometimes I say anyone with a red card underneath it. That's what I said to say, because it's won the first prize. This is a hybrid tea called Selfridges. As you can see, single bloom, lovely long stem, lovely foliage, makes a lovely cut flower. You get the one bud at the top. What it means is you can cut a long way down the stem and they still leave a bit of bush that is going to come back and give you a lovely second flush. The Floribunda, this is a bush called Lucky. It has a head on it, multiple blooms. You just get more visual impact that lasts longer because you get these main buds which will flower first, and then you can nip them out and you'll get a second flowering off all the side buds that come behind it. You prune that down and get a third flush. I wouldn't mind seeing a bed of that in the garden, would you? For me, it's a little bit gardening by feel. I sort of do it on the cuff, taking time to understand what they're doing. This year, bushes are at least 3 weeks earlier than normal. It's been a really dry year and they're a little bit short and they've flushed a lot earlier. They want a bit of rain on them. I almost say when it gets hot like this, they go into limp mode. They're growing, but they're just ticking along. And when we reach 27 to 30 degrees, they just cook on the bush. So I could put as much water into them as I want. All I'd be doing really was draining my soil of nitrogen. So I'm a little bit reserved on the watering. I think everybody who grows roses' biggest fear is pruning, and generally the harder the better. With the hybrid tea, I'm pruning March to roughly 6 to 8 inches, quite hard. I mulch straight after pruning. I'm on a cow manure, but any good well-rotted manure will work. And now he's grown up and he's finished flowering. Now, a lot of the times, people tell you to come along and snap the head off. That's the worst thing you can do. You're not going to get any decent growth off of this bud. Everywhere where there's a leaf joint, there's a bud in it, and you want to come down the stem to a decent bud. And I'd be pruning this rose somewhere there. Little tip I always say is put your secateurs on the top of the leaf joint, then cut, and you'll have the perfect cut every time. Down the stem more, give you a stronger, healthier quality bud, and you'll get a better bloom. I love the roses, but it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really. My wife Paula says to me, what are we doing on the weekend? I say, well, I'm going to the allotment. I'll see you on Monday. I've got too many roses, really. I should have stopped around 600 or 700, but yeah, real hard work. 4 days to prune them, 3 or 4 days mulching. There's no more space. I'm not getting any more space. Fingers crossed. This rose here, Red Devil, it's been around since the 1960s, and this is everybody's hook into showing. I had my first major win with Red Devil, and everybody who's ever shown roses has shown Red Devil. It's the top shown variety. It's a banker. There's 3 or 4 bankers, but Red Devil's right up there. This rose is called Sally Holmes and really is an exhibitor's delight. A single petal white rose with a pink blush, lovely golden stamens, and when you get a head of it like that, it makes the perfect show rose, an absolute winner every time. This is Fifi, and again, another wonderful cluster Floribunda rose, quite thorny. You've got to be careful with her. It has a lovely big head on it. The simple things do make a difference. We cover the blooms, we put plastic cups on them, keeps the dew off, keeps the rain off. You want to be able to manipulate the bloom, so we put cotton wool in them. Once you've cut your blooms, keep the blooms chilled. and then not hitting too many potholes on the way to a show, because damaged blooms are no good to you. I put my whole self into it, and there's nothing left by the end of a show. I'm drained completely of you know, all efforts, and so, yeah, obsessive is probably the right word. And my personal best is 204 firsts so far in a year. I've got to try and beat Tony Bracegirdle, who won 17 national championships. All records are there to be broken. You find a lot of exhibitors end up having a dabble with the breeding, and I'm no different. I ended up with a miniature rose that sort of fit the criteria of what we were looking for. And then it came up, what am I going to call it? And actually naming something you've bred is quite difficult. This is a small bloom, hybrid tea shape, and two-tone colour. I thought, what's sort of the twist on the limelight, and ended up being Glory Hunter. But maybe as an exhibitor, that's what we're doing, aiming for glory. So I'm a glory hunter.
The dedication absolutely blows my mind. Placing those cotton wool just to keep those petals apart, incredible. But hybrid tea roses, though, take me back to being a kid. And Grandad's front borders, absolutely full of them. I mean, him out there tidying and looking for those straight stems. But don't we all love a little bit of going back to our childhood? I'm going to take you back now. I'm about 6, 7 years old. At the end of Scruffy Nan's overgrown garden were 2 greenhouses. One full of coleus, which is the painted nettle, and the other full of these cacti. And I can remember this was the first thing I ever learned to propagate. She sat me in the corner and said, "You pick the little babies off that one, you know, the little cacti, get the tiny little ones coming off them." Obviously it was the 70s, so no gloves, nothing. So I'd pick the little babies off, we'd propagate them, little bits and pieces, and then we'd grow them on. And then on a Sunday morning when I had enough, I would set a little stall outside her house. So yes, that was my first lot of pocket money, was selling these beauties. These seem fashion-wise to be completely and utterly back. And they are perfect, you know, for if you haven't got a lot of room, if you haven't got a garden, you know, just a warm windowsill, whatever that might be. And I think because they are so beautiful, I'm buying them in plastic pots. And I don't want to sound snobby, but I want to put them in something more beautiful. And what's great about a terracotta pot is it's porous as well. So I'm going to put these along the top of the greenhouse, and that collection will look lovely. You can get specialist cacti compost, but I make my own, which is 50% peat-free and 50% horticultural grit. And you can see, even when I squeeze this hard, it falls apart. So cacti, 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 drainage, drainage, drainage. Look at this. So this little beauty is called Gymnocalycium horstii, or known as the spider cactus. So I think we're going to go with that. But straight away you can see why. You know, these little spines ultimately look like a tiny little spider. And I suppose, you know, when we're looking at those little spines, you know, they're modified leaves. That beautiful flower will pop to probably a pale pink, and you've got these little ribs all the way around. And you think, you know, when it rains, you know, it sucks up, and that is the stem. And that's where all the water is stored. So when it comes to potting, all I've got is a couple of bits of paper, and all I'm doing is I'm laying that down and rolling it out. So I'm not touching any of those spines. And now, tiny bit of compost in the bottom of here. And then all I'm going to do is literally treat it like a tube and drop it in. There you go. Hey, it's nice when something works. And all I'm going to do now is really carefully, probably to be fair with a spoon, get my gritty compost and just backfill, just carefully around the edges. Give that a couple of little taps, and then with my little dibber here, I'm just going to work that down, just so it falls down the side of this plant. And then really carefully, just going to dress around the side. So this is just really the horticultural grit that's in the mix. It just looks quite decorative, finishes things off, holds the compost in place. Yeah, enjoying that sunshine, mate. You know, that's a little reminder that some people, rather than using grit, use cat litter. Dust-free, but yeah, pure cat litter to pot these up. I don't think that is for me, in all honesty. I don't want you getting confused, boy, do I? That could end up really messy. Next up, Astrophytum ornatum, or known as the star cactus. And that one could be just floating through space, couldn't it? Look at the spines. So here we go. So we lay it down, we wrap it. That's gonna come out there, hold that in place. And then I'll grab my little pot, and then we're gonna slide, in we go. And I'm hoping that I just about pulled it off twice in a row. And there we go. That looks absolutely incredible. The natural thing to do now would obviously be to water them, but you don't. A couple of weeks, give it time to settle just in case any roots have been damaged. And then you do water through the growing season, which can be April, May, depending on that start to the year, right through to about September time. Water once a week from above, but then also once a month, you can get specialist cacti feed that you could just feed the plant and never sit them in water, which, you know, sometimes with plants, house plants, we can have a tendency to do that, you know. Think drainage, 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 sun, sun, sun. There you go. Now, take you back to April. I sowed the seed for this scabious, and they have done really well. And now's the time. I just want to start popping them around the garden just to provide a little late colour. So, let's crack on. So this is Scabious atropurpurea black knight. You'll read some places it says it's an annual, other places say it's a perennial. So I'm going to take a punt in the middle and call it a short-lived perennial. So it's going to add that late colour. It might not make it through the winter, but hopefully it may seed around. But look at that pincushion flower. It's incredible. And against that Adretina chocolate, it just sings. You know, it'll get to probably up to about sort of 700 mil, you know, so 70 centimetres. I might have to cane them because where I've been growing them, they've gone slightly leggy. But love a limey soil, so for me, we're clay on a limestone bed, so right plant, right place. So here we go. Root systems are really good. I love it when you grow a plant from seed and then you open it up and it's got a beautiful white root system. I'm not going to mess about with it and tease it about because it looks absolutely perfect. Planting them in. It's amazing. We've had 3 or 4 really good downpours and the soil, it's literally like it's soaked it up. So these will love it. What I've done really is I've cleared the spot by taking out some of the other plants that I let seed around the garden. So what I've done is the Baltic parsley that you can see here, and maybe just along there, that was all the way through. So I've cleaned some of that out, left some of it so it seeds, and now I'm just filling those voids. It's just quite a nice way to keep the garden bubbling along and taking you into those autumn months. And I suppose it might feel as if it's a little late that I've put them in, but in reality I've been waiting for the weather to break. It was too dry, and now I do feel there's some moisture in. I've checked the weather over the next few weeks and it does feel as if there's moments when we will get some rain. But I'll keep an eye on them and hopefully they'll be okay. When I get a couple more of these in, we are off to meet an incredibly inspirational gardener who really is demonstrating the power of gardening.
This space is for everybody. The vision in this garden is that it's open every day for people to come in, enjoy the space, get stuck in, water, potter around, do whatever they want. I think gardening and I think connecting with nature through that lens is magic. I'm Jamie, I am a founder of Down to Earth. Down to Earth is an organisation that is pushing forward nature-based regeneration to connect people with nature, with their communities and themselves. We got this site in the heart of Derby city centre, and then we created Electric Daisy. In the garden, we've got like a variety of, I'd say, gardening styles. I do like cottage gardens, I do like wisterias, I do like foxgloves. It's a bit like mix and match as well. Like we've got a load of strawberries growing, which is really nice. If you see them, you've got to eat them, haven't you? Like, it's just rude not to. We didn't want to do a garden that was formal. Really important for us to feel like you're going through a maze. We want people to come through and feel like they're going on a journey. Most of my life has been factory floor work, shift work. Anybody who works shift work, they know the toll it takes on you physically, but also mentally. My kind of solace was always, in my time between my shifts, escaping to the Peak District, you know, just going for rambles and finding a pub at the end of it, or getting into learning how to grow food. I remember working a set of night shifts, finishing Friday morning, going to bed, sleeping 4 hours, you feel like a zombie. My wife came home and she goes, come on, let's go out in the garden. We were out there for 3 to 4 hours, and mind, body, spirit changed, and that's kind of where the idea was born. Just gonna prune these tomatoes back and just prune the lower leaves off. The learning curve has been, it's like been that steep, it's been unreal. This is an artichoke from my garden that wasn't doing so well, but is absolutely thriving here, and this Claris sage as well. Artichoke is one of my favourite things to grow. That's why I got a tattoo of an artichoke. I love artichoke. Artichokes on pizza, best thing. We walk through the archway. This is full of passion flowers, levatera, clementine. I did plant this last year and it's gone absolutely wild. I didn't think it was going to climb as well as it has. My knowledge when I first started was I just grew stuff that I thought was cool, and then I just wanted to grow veg, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I remember when we planted our first plants on here and it was a dead space, and I remember like literally just seeing life just gravitate to what we planted, and like, you know, when you see that, it's a really powerful moment.
I'm picking strawberries.
Mate, you got to, otherwise I'll be gone. What's really important with what we're doing here, and part of the concept is around that third place concept. We used to have a pub, used to have a youth club, used to have the WR, used to have the British Legion. some of them places are no longer relevant to today's society and today's generations. There's a reason why we've got antisocial behaviour in urban spaces. There's a reason why we're in a mental health crisis and we're in an epidemic where people are struggling. Through the men's socials that we do, Grow Bros, on a Friday night, and having people who don't know each other garden with each other, and it's a bit of a laugh, and they're, you know, not taking it too seriously. And then they have a beer, and then they start talking about things, and they start talking about how life is, and we've sown some seeds, and we've done a bit of this, and we've done a bit of that. And then they sit down, and you come in, and you could see them, and you'd be like, they're best mates. And that's the power of gardening, and that's the power of connecting with nature, is that it's got the power to connect us together and create community for that kind of collective purpose. It makes me really proud to see that people are connecting with our message and our story and want to be part of it. That does make me really proud. But yeah, we've still got a long way to go, but you know, we're making it happen.
I think they should all be very proud of what they're doing. And on a personal note, the moment, the mention of men getting out, getting their hands in the soil and talking, now that for me is definitely a good thing. I cannot resist every time I walk past. Wonderful. It's a thornless blackberry, and the idea is it just creates this wonderful fountain. And yes, that is Buster you can hear in the background. No, dog, it can't be all about you. Yes, I know. I think the lovely people want to see how you're getting on. So you last saw him back in April when he was a young baby. Now he's a young man and he has settled in to the family. Even Ash and him bonded, get on quite well, which is great. But also he's found his purpose, haven't you? He has got a thing about the pigeons. If he sees a pigeon, it's not there very long and he scares it away. So there you go, done well, haven't you, mate? Yeah? You're gonna go down? There you go. I think this year in the veg garden, I mean, I've changed the whole of that area into an ornamental veg garden, so it's got the fruit in there. I've got my herbs, my vegetables, my cut flower, and it's done really well. But one thing that's been fantastic is the fruit. And there's something there shouting out for a little help. Come on in, boy, let's go. Come on. I can't believe for a dry year how much growth these apples have put on. In places it's over 2 foot. And they're actually little stepovers, which to describe one, it's a tiny little upright with a bar across the top, a bit like a short tea really. That one is called Holland Pippin and this one is balsam. I would say to anybody that's putting fruit in their garden, always have a few varieties because that means fertility is going to be so much better. So I know sometimes you pick a book up and even I look at it and going, right, so where exactly do you prune? Well, something like a stepover, I tend to feel down the stem and you get to that final third and that's really gone quite woody. And then what I'm looking to do is I'm finding where last year I pruned and then just basically 1 or 2 buds up from there, literally nipping. What you're doing, letting in light, you're letting in air, and, you know, you're creating places for next year. I think it's one of these things, it's a lot easier to actually watch someone doing it than it is to try and work out from a book. You might also have heard the term spur, which if you see, look, where I've cut that back, that's just that little growth of last year's growth. I mean, most of this pruning is done in the summer. If I wanted to sort of do something what I would call remedial, you know, go back in and really affect the shape of this, because it's an apple, you could even do it with pears, then that would be done through the winter months. You know, I don't think you need a huge amount of room to grow an awful lot of fruit, you know, to put on the kitchen table. You know, and I've used the boundaries, I've used the end of the beds, and also I think with this pruning lark, you know, we worry a bit too much about it. It's about having a go, get it a little bit wrong to start with. You'll soon get the hang of it and you'll be away. And I actually find it quite therapeutic. Well, I'm quite pleased with that. So these stepos for me are a fantastic way of just getting a little more out of your space. Now, Francis went to Bath to visit a garden that I don't think is wasting an inch.
In gardening, we know that small really can be beautiful. But in smaller spaces, knowing which plants to choose is really key. So I'm very excited to be going to a terraced house owned by a gardener who is a self-confessed lover of unusual plants. Matt Evans is a landscape architect and garden designer who moved here 5 years ago. The garden was just paths, patios, and grass, filling the 4-metre by 20-metre space. Now it's transformed, keeping the original hard landscaping, yet becoming a true plantsman's garden. Matt, this garden is so beautiful, and I love it's green. What was your kind of thinking behind that?
So the green was the undercurrent for the garden, and I wanted it to feel really calm. You feel your heart rate drop when you're in the garden, which is really lovely, and makes me feel really relaxed. So,
yeah. Although it's very dominated by green, there is colour. How do you approach the colours?
So colour, I think, in a small space is really important. So I wanted to keep it quite restrained so that I could get a lot of different plants in, but then it doesn't feel too busy or overwhelming. Throughout the garden, it's a very similar kind of palette of pinks, of whites, of the greens. So then it all feels unified without being too busy. It's really challenging to get that balance right, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think it's one that takes time, and I
Yeah.
think it's one that you sleep on many nights.
You do,
And
and,
then, yeah.
you rejig, and you dig it all up and you put them all around. I don't know if you do the
Yeah,
same
no,
thing.
you do. No, I do exactly the same. And I'll come back a week later and I'll go, no, that's completely wrong.
Yeah.
I need to dig it up now.
Yeah, exactly. Matt loves unusual plants, and there's lots here that I don't recognise, and some I do, like this Korean celery that I grow at home. Yours is nicely well behaved, though. I'm thinking of moving mine because it's getting really quite tall, but yours is maybe in a slightly better position, being in the sun, a bit drier.
Yeah. I think because of the lack of water we've had this year with the really dry spring, it's really kept its height down this year.
And this is a very splendid euphorbia. What's this one?
So this is Euphorbia segueriana nishishiana, which is a really beautiful plant.
And it's not too high. Is that it's kind of like, I can see there's another one over there. How big will it eventually be? 'Cause
Yeah.
It can get quite leggy.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's great. So it gets a bit leggy outside of full sun or part shade.
Okay.
But in a good sunny spot, it will stay nice like this, and it will get about 1 metre by maybe 90 high.
But in this garden, there are some really big statement plants. This is a great Paulonia, Matt.
Oh, I love this tree so much. It really is one of the most special things in the garden.
Yeah.
And it's just the size of the leaves that gets me every time.
They're so big.
Yeah, super beautiful.
It's great to bring shade but also such a dramatic feature into the garden. But how do you maintain this one to make sure it's not getting too big for the space?
So I just cut it back once every year. So I pollard it, and the best time to do that is just after it's flowered.
Okay.
So end of April, beginning of May, and I cut it just above my head height,
Right.
so I can still walk underneath it, and you keep this lovely structure as well. And you can see this year's growth, which is already,
So that's good.
it's already 2 meters, you know, it's huge.
It's enormous and looks fantastic in this garden. Tucked in the middle of this planty garden is a tiny patch of lawn. Matt wanted to get rid of it, but his wife insisted it stayed for good reason.
At the time I was a bit upset, but on reflection now, we use it so often. So me, my wife, and Benjamin, our son, we play out there all the time. And you're surrounded by the plants as well, which is really lovely.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're really kind of engrossed and surrounded by plants, which in an urban area is so lovely to have.
Well, it's hugely beautiful. I'm quite jealous. It's just such a lovely space to be in.
I just love spending all my time gardening, and then just, yeah, it's just a wonderful thing to do.
What's so clever about the design of this garden is the way that the zones are created using the planting. So this first half that you meet is full of frothy, textury, soft planting. But then you can see right from the beginning that the end is very different. It's bold, big foliage, completely different feel, and yet it's not working against this half, but what it's doing is making you want to go and explore the far end. But what really catches your eye are these two plants. Now this one is Petasites japonicus, and just look at the size of these leaves. It's so beautiful and big, but it will take over a space. So that's why it's in this lovely galvanised pot, which is definitely worth considering, especially in a smaller garden. On the other hand, this one, which is Arundodonax, so it's a kind of reed, it won't run. It's not a bamboo. So you could have this in a really small garden. It won't bother your neighbours. Cut it back in the winter, and then in one single season, it puts on all of this growth. So it gives drama and sculpture without taking over. It may feel counterintuitive to put big foliage plants in a narrow garden like this, but actually what you'll find is that lots of small plants make a space feel bitty, whereas bold, big choices actually make a garden feel bigger. Now, Matt is obviously a collector of plants. He likes to have as many different things in the garden as possible, but where his real skill comes into play is in putting all of those different plants together. And the way that he has created cohesion within that is by repeating certain forms and certain plants through the whole garden. So umbellifers, astrantias, euphorbias, even the wild strawberry that runs along the ground creates a sort of backdrop of harmony that the other plants can come against. But a plant I particularly like in this bed is this. It's garlic cress, and it's completely new to me. I've not grown it before. I've not seen it before. I want to grow it now. And it has little tiny white flowers followed by these sprays of orangey golden seeds. And the leaves and flowers are edible, so that makes it a win for me. Matt and I were talking earlier on, and we both agreed, and I remember when I discovered it myself, that when you fall in love with plants and you get the bug for plants, you realise you'll never be bored, because no matter what kind of plants you like, there's always more to learn about them, and there's always more plants to meet and discover. And take it from me that no matter how small your garden is, there's always room for one more plant.
The one thing that jumped out at me with that garden was that use of green, that simplicity, and then the colour just pops every now and then. Talking about the colour green, I realised, hands up, I've got a load of apples here that I probably should have thinned earlier on in the year, but in my defence, I could not see them. They were buried under the growth. So what I'm going to do is just tease off the smaller apples, just to provide some more room for the slightly bigger ones to ripen. So there you go. That'll allow now the light, the air, the heat that's on my back in there. And hopefully I'm going to have a decent crop come September or October. And why I finish this off is a few things you could be doing at the weekend, if you fancy it. If your strawberries are healthy and sending out runners, now's the time to propagate them. Fill some pots with peat-free compost and using a piece of wire, peg down each one in turn. Keep well watered to encourage good root growth. And within a month, you'll have new plants that then can be severed from their parent. Hardy geraniums can look a bit scruffy once they've finished flowering, like this one that's flopped onto the path. But if you chop them right back, they'll soon recover and put on a new flush of growth. My greenhouse tomatoes are coming on nicely. If you grow yours in pots like me, it's worth giving them a weekly feed. I like to use an organic tomato food, but any fertiliser rich in potassium will do. While you're at it, tie in the stems. And if you're wondering why mine are growing at an angle, it's to make the most of the sun and the available space. You all right, son? Enjoying that sunshine? I think connections to the past through gardening is a wonderful thing. Those are early memories of who you gardened with. And I'm looking at those and it feels like I've just set my shop up. It's Sunday morning, people are wandering by and these lovely sweet blue eyes are saying, "Would you like to buy a cactus, madam or sir? Would look lovely on your windowsill." By the end of the morning, I had a pocket full of change and I felt like the richest kid in the land. And then ultimately, you'd probably blow most of it at the sweet shop. Well, I think that is it from us today. But Monty will be back next week at Longmeadow. In the meantime, look after yourselves. You gonna say bye-bye? He says bye-bye.